All right, back here with the U.S. Constitution Explained, and today we are talking about the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution. You've probably heard of it before. Ever heard of I plead the Fifth? Of course, that has to do with the Fifth Amendment. So let's talk about what this one means, and we'll start off by reading the amendment itself word for word, as we always do. So the Fifth Amendment reads, "No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation." So there it is. What does it mean when someone says, "I plead the Fifth"? This is your right to remain silent, just as it said there in the text of the document. No person has to provide evidence that could self-incriminate oneself. What about that section about indictments? Well, this has not been interpreted to apply to the states, but it does apply to federal indictments. And it says that for all felony federal indictments, you should have a grand jury filing those charges. What is a grand jury? You've probably heard of a grand jury before. A grand jury is a panel of private citizens who hear evidence from a prosecutor, evidence that they have against the person that they are accusing of the crime, and then that panel of citizens decides if they believe that indictment, the criminal charges, should be filed against the citizen or not. If the grand jury says, or if they vote to indict, then that federal indictment can take place. Again, that's outlined here in the Fifth Amendment. So we've got that grand jury's clause, but we also have the due process clause. And I should say that both of these are rooted in the English Magna Carta dating back to 1215 AD. Now, the due process clause basically says that all defendants have the right to a fair trial. And again, as the text read, the government cannot seize your private property without due compensation or for the market value of your property. What does the Double Jeopardy clause mean? In simplest terms, people judge that to mean that you can't face criminal trial for the exact same charge twice. Essentially what that means is it is broken down into three distinct rights of the individual. Number one, your defendant will not face a second prosecution for that charge if they've been acquitted. Number two, a defendant will not face a second prosecution if they've been convicted. And number three, a defendant will not receive multiple punishments for the same crime. Now, I'm going to quote Cornell Law School on this, on what this does not mean. Cornell Law School says courts have not interpreted the Double Jeopardy clause as either prohibiting the state from seeking a review of a sentence or restricting a sentence's length on rehearing after a defendant's successful appeal. Cornell goes on to say the term jeopardy refers to the danger of conviction. Thus, jeopardy does not attach unless a risk of the determination of guilt exists. If some event or circumstance prompts the trial court to declare a mistrial, jeopardy has not been attached if the mistrial only results in minimal delay and the government does not receive added opportunity to strengthen its case. All right, and lastly, that just compensation clause. Basically, the government does have the right to take private property for public use, but it requires the federal government to pay what is determined as fair market value for that property that was obtained. So there's a lot to it. That is a broad overview of the Fifth Amendment. There are lots of resources out there if you want to read deeper on this. Again, I would recommend the U.S. Constitution Center, and I would highly recommend the page that Cornell Law School has defining the Fifth Amendment. I will link both of them in the video description. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate it a lot. We'll see you next time here on Mr. Droste History.